AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast with Rich Ferraro.
Welcome to YATESY'S Espresso Bar.
Hello and welcome to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. And at this time of the week, we like to step into YATESY'S Espresso Bar for a hot caffeinated beverage and a little chat about what's going on at the City Ground. I'm Rich Ferraro and I'm joined by, firstly, Stephen Topless. How you doing, Stephen?
I'm good.
Excellent. And also, on this occasion, we have Tom Newton stepping in to get himself a nice hot chocolate deluxe.
Evening.
Okay, so since we last recorded YATESY'S Espresso Bar, well, there's been a lot happening. So obviously, Sean Dyche was being confirmed as the new manager, and just this time last week. And since then, he's had a win against Porto and a defeat at Bournemouth. So much to ponder. And let's start off with the most recent match, which was at Bournemouth, because Tom, just before we started recording, I was having a little chat with you, and there's a couple of things that I really want to kind of get under the skin of. Let's take it as read that everyone was on a high after Porto, and we'll talk about that in a little while. But we'll take it as read everyone was on a high. So the first thing I want to ask you is, at Bournemouth, long journey down there, and what was the mood like amongst the fans before the match started?
Pretty normal, really, like upbeat, because it's another Forest match, and obviously new manager, etc. And you're just excited to see how we play. But it just seems at the moment, every time we go down to Bournemouth, it's inevitable that we'll lose a game of football. I know we got a draw a couple of years ago, but last year we got smashed 5-0. And on Sunday, played really poor. Sean Dyche has mentioned that in his post-match, and just another disappointing result. Just like at the moment, when you go a goal behind it, the vitality, just a sense of inevitability, the game's done and dusted, pretty much.
Yeah, well, that's kind of why I was asking the question, because I'm guessing that there's quite a lot of optimism after seeing, what was a really tidy victory against Porto, but then that's tempered with the fact that, well, we're going to Bournemouth. And Stephen, as an input on that as well, those of you who've listened to the match report from the Bournemouth match, we had a view from the opposition by John from the Cherries Red Army. And when I messaged him the day before, I said, do you mind sending us a voice note after Bournemouth beat Forest on Sunday? And he just responded with a laughing emoji. But there's a truism, isn't there, Stephen, which is that we just never win there.
They're like the modern day Warsaw, aren't they? We just cannot get a result against.
Thanks for that reminder.
Down rack.
Similar size stadium as well. It's frustrating. Of course it is. It's frustrating because they've just become a team that, as far as we're concerned, we don't like them because we always lose against them. And sometimes there's controversy. We had that game a few years ago, which was Nuno's first one in charge, with the phantom red card for Willy Bolly. We had, even on this weekend, a corner that shouldn't have been given and a push on the line on our goalkeeper that stopped him getting to the ball that came in that wasn't given. So, yes, they're just a frustrating club, aren't they, Bournemouth? We have to be resigned to losing there, unfortunately. It seems to be the way.
And Tom, on that, so yeah, if everyone's kind of going, well, it's Bournemouth, and if we go behind, then we're going to lose. But on the other hand, was there a sense of frustration? Because obviously on the TV, I could see that there was for example, a corner given when Murillo stopped the whole of the ball going over the line, and I could see that Nico had clearly kicked the ball onto Tavernier's foot, which meant that it shouldn't have been a corner. And on TV, you can also clearly see that there is a push on Sells. Whether that's a foul or not, that's another issue. But in the ground, presumably those things weren't so clear.
Well, when they had the replay, they actually put the disputed corner on the big screen. And we was like looking at them thinking they've got to overturn this, but obviously they didn't. Regarding the foul on Sells, yeah, there is some contact there, but I think Sells has got to be stronger on that. I really do. But it's just a sense, if you're going to like Bournemouth and you just want Forest to compete, but they seem just shoot themselves in the foot. And it's that end again. Remember last season when Matt Sells just like palmed it back into the area and they scored their fourth or fifth. It's just they don't help themselves when they go down there. Obviously, shenanigans with the corner and everything. Then obviously Sells has got to do a lot better. Then the second goal, Louise and Anderson getting each other's way, and I just think Sells should be doing a bit better with that as well. But I think it's being really, I think questions are being asked with Sells at the moment. Whether it's a confidence thing, I don't know, but he hasn't covered himself in glory this season. I was adamant that the 3 goals what he conceded against Chelsea, he had a massive part to play in them. 2 were definitely his fault, the free kick and him flapping for the 3rd goal. So, but the thing is though with it is that there's nobody really to replace him, because I wasn't convinced with John Victor in the Swansea game in the Carabao Cup and Angus Gunn his first choice, and you're not going to get like a decent goalkeeper to sit on the bench, are you, when Matt Sells is the number 1? So hopefully he can get it out of his system, and that starts on Saturday against Man United at home.
Stephen, any thoughts on the goalkeeper situation?
For me, it's a symptom of the wider problems with the defence and the goals that we keep conceding. And Porto the other night was an exception. Although we conceded on the night, the goal was disallowed, thankfully. So I'm hopeful that once Sean Dyche has had more time to work with the defence and hopefully tighten it up, it will give Matt Sells his confidence back, and he can regain some of his best form, because he's gone from being one of the best goalkeepers in the league to being one of the worst.
Yeah, I mean, I would also say, Stephen, in response to your thing about was it a push on the keeper, I think this comes down to, and with the corner as well, comes down to one of those things where you can tell a lot by the reaction of players. So you contrast Sells. He protested, but you kind of knew that he was protesting for the sake of protesting rather than because he genuinely believed he was going to get a foul. And you can contrast that to the way that Nico yelled at the linesman when the corner was given, whereas like he was genuinely feeling wronged there. So I think that, again, that suggests to me that it's a confidence thing. And I'm just thinking back to the work that that Dyche did with his defence and goalkeepers at both Everton and Burnley. And the key thing is to get them working as a unit again. Because it's a Dychean thing, but also, Stephen, is because that's how Nuno got the best out of the team last season.
Definitely. And the previous manager didn't know any idea how to set up a defence as a unit. So it's no wonder that the back four and the goalkeeper have got no confidence when you're working for a manager like that. So I'm hopeful that Sean Dyche can come in and restore all those good habits that Nuno had us doing last season.
Yeah, and on that, Tom, let's think about the Bournemouth match, but also think a little bit about the Porto match, because one of the things that I found really, really frustrating in that, 39 days of madness was that under Nuno, with the exception of that West Ham match, let's take that as read, but under Nuno, one of the things that I thought worked really, really well, and this wasn't just about the block, this was about the tactical movement, is that the midfield was screening the defence really well. So they all worked as a unit. And that's, of course, one of the reasons why Anderson has really kind of shot to prominence as being such a key member of Forest and England's midfield. And under Ange, that was undone overnight. And there's absolutely no protection. There's just big gaps for people to run into, and teams could kind of swan through the middle with just gay abandon. And we saw that with Krupi's goal against us at the weekend, didn't we? Where, again, there's that disconnect between midfield and defence, and that left us exposed.
Yeah, it's going to take time. Even Sean Dyche says they've had so much information in. There's so many days they've had since their first training session, and that was it last Tuesday before the Porto game. So there's a big turnaround in terms of the Porto game, then going down to Bournemouth. I know they flew down to Bournemouth, but still, tactically, the two games are different. So it's going to take time, and I think this week's going to be gold dust for Sean Dyche, get his ideas across, solidify the back four, get the midfield and as a working unit, as you've mentioned. And yeah, it starts now. And looking at the table, I am a bit worried in terms of the distinct lack of goals. And obviously, there's like little leagues, isn't there, where certain teams are pulling away, kind of thing. So we need to basically get two back-to-back wins, and I think, or a minimum of 4 points out of the next two home games. But I think Sean Dyche, if you want somebody to get your team to be defensive resolute, I think he's the man. And hopefully he's got the best squad in my eyes he's ever had. No disrespect to Everton or Burnley, but if you can get the attacking players working with midfield, he has got a lot to work with. But it's just going to take time, isn't it?
Yeah, and I see this as basically being a bit of a parallel with when Nuno took over from Cooper. The issue was not necessarily one of ability in the squad. It's about how you harness that ability and give them the confidence, which is, it took Nuno half a season to do. Dyche is a past master. This is what he does, isn't it? I know that he doesn't like being seen as a firefighter, and I agree that. I don't think that's particularly fair on him. But Tom, you were a bit sceptical about the Dyche appointment, thinking, well, we could and should do better.
Yeah, I just think with Marinakis, he's like, he wants us to play in a certain way. He wants us to be a team at the top end of the Premier League, i.e. Europe and everything. And I just think at the moment, I think with people who said, oh, what about PSR? I get all of that. And Forest probably don't want to go down that avenue of obviously having to pay like compensation for, say, Marco Silva, etc. So probably Sean Dyche is the best and cheapest in terms you don't have to pay compensation. I am sceptical in terms of what he's done at Everton and Burnley, where he's, like you say, he's a bit of a firefighter. But like I says, he never had like the riches of buying certain players. So he has got that here in terms of like the likes of Gibbs, White, Anderson, Backwell, etc. So he has got a lot more to work out than he did at Everton. So I am sceptical, but I still think at the moment with our current situation, he's probably the best person to be our manager.
Okay, and Stephen, two things that I want to throw to you. Firstly, there is a Forest connection, and he really, really played on that, and the club have really, really played on that, not only with Dyche, but with the rest of the coaching staff, most notably the two former wingers who were playing the last time European football was at the City Ground. But also, I think that the mark of an effective manager is very often getting a team to play greater than the sum of its parts. Nuno managed that with Forest last season. Steve Cooper managed that in terms of getting Forest promoted. So I think that in that respect, Dyche is potentially a good appointment because, again, you look at Burnley had no right to stay in the division in the way that they did, but they were a tough, solid unit.
Yes, and that's what we need to become now, because under Postecoglou, we were a soft team. We looked good going forward in spells, but the goals we were conceding were poor, and they were happening far too often. And we need somebody to come in and sort that out. I think if we get that defence and that defensive unit working together, how it did under Nuno, the midfield and the attack will follow, and we'll get more goals. Because just having that defence reliable gives confidence to the rest of the team. If you haven't got that, that's when your strikers are missing chances and they're feeling the pressure because they know that the teammates behind them are not going to keep clean sheets. So if you get that right, that sets us up to kick on. And yeah, we've wasted 5 or 6 games under Postecoglou, and as a result, that's why we're in the relegation zone as it stands. But I remain hopeful that given time, this season, Sean Dyche will pull us away from that bottom 3 and we'll be comfortably safe.
Okay, still to come in this episode of YATESY'S Espresso Bar, we're going to talk a bit about the Porto match, about Nicoló Savona, Elliot Anderson, and another little rumour that we heard.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
When it comes to what your family eats and drinks, you know your choices matter. You're the expert because you know what fits your life. And getting it right starts with good information. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing more information about our ingredients at goodtoknowfacts.org. No spin, no judgments, just the facts straight from the experts for more than 140 beverage ingredients. Visit goodtoknowfacts.org.
Welcome to Yates's Espresso Bar.
Welcome back to Yates's Espresso Bar. This is the 1865 podcast. I'm Rich, and Tom and Stephen are here with me. Now, Tom, I'm going to come to you because I said we'd talk about Nicoló Savona, and there's an interesting bit of discourse going on. I put in our group chat, I made the mistake of looking at Twitter and how I wish I hadn't, and that's because there's a lot of conversation going on about Nicoló Savona. Generally, in our group chat on Sunday, we were going, Savona's doing all right. You know, he's a young lad. I don't think he's fluent in English, and he's come over. He's been, thrown into the team probably a bit sooner than we'd like, and yeah, he's done all right. In the last couple of matches, he's shown distinct improvement. And then there's some people on Twitter who are saying, oh, he's no good. And I don't know if that's because comparison is the thief of joy, so you're comparing him to Ola Aina and Nico Williams, who are swashbuckling fullbacks, if ever there were. Where do you stand on that whole issue?
He was on our side in the second half, where the away section is. I felt a bit sorry for him because there was a couple of times where he tried to make the run, and it was a case of that Gibbs White played the ball and he just didn't read it, whereas an Aina or a Williams would be getting on it and whipping it across the face of goal. So after that happened, there was a couple of times where they were reluctant to pass to him. He had an argument with Nicoló Milenkovic because I think he was trying to say run down the line, and obviously I'll try and pick you out, and he didn't. But Nicoló Milenkovic, I presume, can speak Italian for his time at Fiorentina. So there was a time where he refused to give him the ball, and they were trying to play the ball inside to available midfielder like Elliot Anderson, for example, or Ryan Yates in the second half. And we all know he's not an Ola Aina or he's not a Nico Williams if Nico Williams plays on that side, but in my eyes, he's a centre back playing at right back just to do a job. And apparently at Juventus, I don't watch much Italian football now like I used to when it was Gazzetta in the 90s. He played on the right side of a back three where they had wing back, so obviously he probably looks a bit better there, but he hasn't played in that system at Forest. And obviously we all know it's hard going to a new league, new culture, living somewhere different kind of thing. So, but at the end of the day, he tries, but he's not a Ola Aina. And I think with Ola Aina missing from the side, there's a massive downturn of level of performance from us because he just balanced the side up and everything, making those runs, joining them with the attacks and etc. And he can defend as well because obviously his recovery pace. But yeah, I just felt a bit sorry for Savona. He's not an out-and-out right back how a modern right back is in the Premier League.
Stephen, I put a poll on Twitter, and it's still running actually at the time of we're recording, but the question was Savona at NFFC so far, and the options were yes or not for me, and 86% of our respondents so far have said yes, and 14% have said not for me. Where do you stand?
I stand on the yes side. I like what I've seen of him so far, aside from that difficult debut against Arsenal in trying circumstances. I think he's handled himself well. When he came off the bench against Porto in midweek, he performed well. On Sunday, he performed well up against Antoine Semenyo, who's in red-hot form at the moment. The only thing lacking in his game are those attacking instincts, and that is because he is a centre-back by trade, playing as a right back. And this comes back to our recruitment this summer and why, when Ola Aina is injured, we haven't got somebody who can really step into his place and deliver what we want, not just defensively, but in attack as well. Because the way we play, wing backs fullbacks are so crucial in getting us up the pitch and providing support when we need it. For me, it just raises more questions over our recruitment this summer. Nothing wrong with signing the likes of Savona and Jai, but we didn't go out and buy a replacement right back in the mould of what we need. Likewise, at left back, we've got Alexander Zinchenko, who's fine going forward, but is a nightmare defensively. And this is, I think, a symptom of poorly thought out recruitment in the summer. We're paying the price for it now.
Okay. Yeah, Tom?
And then another thing regarding left back, is it Cabano? We signed him, then we sent him back to Botafogo. So I think that's counterproductive regarding the recruitment side of things. I don't know if it would have affected the quota of what you need in your squad for even the Premier League, but surely that he went back to Botafogo before we signed Alexander Zinchenko. So surely it would have been better keeping him in and around the club rather than sending him back to Brazil.
Well, I think that Kiabano is like Jair Cunha and like Savona, was signed as one for the future. All very young players who haven't got that much first team experience. So I should imagine that's part of it. And of course, there was the whole will he won't he thing with Kiabano. So maybe he wanted to, by the sounds of it, he wanted to go and finish the season at Botafogo, and he'll be back with us in January. But time will tell on that one. I just want to move on to another issue, and this was a bit from our match report on Sunday.
For all the criticism that people like Ryan Yates used to get last season, as people say he's not got the ability of Sangare or Anderson or Louise, sometimes you need that sort of dark arts in there. You can't see the light if you haven't got the dark. And it improved when he came on at half-time. We were a bit more dominant in that midfield. Bournemouth really were completely ineffective, but that might be because they didn't need to play anywhere close to because we had a 2-0 lead. But yeah, I think that's part of the game, though, Stephen. We can sort of criticise him for it, but that is part of the game, and we did that well last season. We were good at the little fouls and things like that. We were a nasty team to play against as well. We annoyed other fan bases and other clubs.
Okay, so that was the Maradona in the Midlands talking about the need to be a bit more nasty. And obviously, Stephen, you spoke to Maradona at the weekend, so I'll come to Tom on this one. I think that one of the things that was missing, and this is maybe a bit predictable, Tom, is that on Sunday, Anderson and Louise looked off the pace. They looked, Sean Dyche basically suggested they were quite tired. I think Douglas Luiz had a bit of a reputation for being a 60-minute player at the best of times. And so I just kind of think, well, I mean, as Maradona pointed out, you know what? Bournemouth had taken their foot off the gas, and John from Cherry's Red Army more or less said that as well. So, but there's a role for someone who's a bit more physical and a bit more, like we say, dark artsy, isn't there?
There is. I just think with Yates sometimes, if he gets an early yellow card, if he starts the game and gets an early yellow card, that's like 50% of Yates's game because he knows he can't touch that player again. But regarding the tiredness, etc., I think Sean Dyche was in a bit of a damned if he is, damned if he doesn't. Because if he changes the side from the Porto side and we still lost 2-0, they'd be like, oh, why have you changed a winning side? So there is that. But I don't like using the word drop, but I will rest Elliot Anderson for the Graz game if I was Sean Dyche, because he's played a hell of a lot of football. Last season was his first season where he's played. He must have played well over 30 games for us in terms of the cup games because he got to the last stage of the FA Cup. He had the under-21s tournament in the summer. Then he's come back and played the majority of this season. And some of his decision making, which it's not his fault. He doesn't mean to do it, but got some misplaced passes and this, that, and the other. So yeah, for the Graz game, because we should have. I think they lost a few games in the Europa League, so you'd like to think Forest have got enough to go out to Austria and beat them on next week. So yeah, I'd rest Elliot Anderson, that kind of thing, because you don't want to flog him, do you? And then he gets an injury, then you're knackered in that department.
And of course, we saw Nico Dominguez come back, so he's obviously a different type of player. But interesting that Dyche sort of played him almost as a number 10 for the little bit of time that he was on the pitch, and so maybe the idea is that Nico provides that backup to Anderson in terms of being the players maybe able to advance things, transition from defence to attack. Stephen, I mean, for all that there's that accusation that Ryan Yates, if he gets a yellow card, that takes him out of the game. I think you could say the same about Dougie Luiz, who got an absolutely unnecessary yellow card against Bournemouth, and then it was like stunting his potential for most of that match, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that was frustrating, but we've got enough options in midfield to rotate or to deal with players getting yellow cards. So if Ryan Yates is on the bench, he can step in for Douglas Luiz. Okay, he's a different profile of player, but hypothetically, Dominguez could do the same. Or if Yatesy starts, you bring Douglas Luiz on, you bring Dominguez on. Whoever, Anderson as well, we need to be able to rotate him because, like Tom says, he's played a hell of a lot of football. If you include all of his England games this season, the under-21s tournament in the summer, he hasn't had much of a break. So we've got to use these options available to us. Ibrahim Sangare's been in and out of the side. We know what he can do. And even Morgan Gibbs-White, I wouldn't be against resting him.
I think there's quite a lot of people who might think that. Tom, are you one of them?
We've got McAtee on the bench, so use him.
Yeah, I agree with you, Richard. I just think Gibbs-White, he hasn't been great this season. I mean, he had a better game against Porto, but he hasn't been great this season. And I'm in the camp where you think when he signed his contract in the summer, you think great, but then you're looking back at it now and you're thinking, should we have took the money from Spurs, 60 million quid? Would have obviously, with Alanga going, I know it would have been hard for two of our better players from last season to depart, but 60 million quid, it would have been wonders regarding the PSR regulations. You could have reinvested that in the squad. So, but to be honest, I just don't think we'll probably see that money, especially on this Morgan's form this season. To be honest, so
but on the other hand, rumours abound that we might see £100 million for Elliot Anderson. So, what do you think about that, Tom?
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, but I'd like to see Forest not cave in and actually try and build the squad around Elliot Anderson. I think
devil's advocate then, Stephen. Isn't that exactly what we said when we rebuffed Tottenham's advances for the on-pitch skipper?
Yes, but that's why we've brought in James McAtee to be the successor to Morgan Gibbs-White. And in my opinion, Elliot Anderson would be a bigger loss to this team than Morgan Gibbs-White would be. So, yes, it would be £100 million in the bank, but we'd find it so difficult to replace what Elliot Anderson brings to the team now.
Is McAtee ready? Because in the couple of bits we've seen of him, and admittedly it's so difficult when it's stop-start, what he's done is he's looked like a player who's not ready. And we've seen this, I think it's a very similar situation to Milos Kerkez at Liverpool, whereby he's a player who's got, a season or two of first-team experience, but not that many games. And he's been asked to play a similar position, but in a very different way at Forest compared to what he was doing at Man City. So, Stephen, is McAtee ready? And is that a gamble that we could afford to take at the moment?
Probably not, but while Morgan's still here, that's where you can rotate them and that's where you can introduce McAtee more gradually. And that's why the attacking depth that we've brought in is there. So that's where your succession planning comes into place, and that's where you think, right, Morgan's here for another year at least. If he performs really well again, somebody else will come in for him for £60 million or more. But we've had McAtee with us for this season. He's played some games, worked his way in and deputised for Morgan. And that's how you bring him on and make sure that he is ready. And that brings me back to that point of succession planning. That's where you work out that pathway for your players to come through and develop.
Okay. And Tom, thinking about the way that things are going for Forest under Sean Dyche, there's an elephant in the room. And this is a slight change of subject, but again, this came up in our group chat the other day. So there are rumours abounding that Nuno had basically fallen out with his own staff over the summer, and that's one of the reasons for his grumpiness and him sabotaging his own position at the club. And the rumour is that the reason that some of those staff haven't joined Nuno at West Ham, and he's promoted from within at the club, is because some of those staff are still on the payroll at Nottingham Forest. So firstly, have you heard that rumour? And secondly, is that a bit insane?
I have heard the rumour, and it is insane that they're still on the payroll, but it's obviously pretty much like gardening leave, isn't it? But I have heard this is that Nuno sorted his own contract out, and he didn't sort the contract out for his staff, and they probably found it was a bit disloyal from Nuno, and that's why another reason why they haven't joined him at West Ham. So you're going to hear a lot of rumours, but in the true light of day, we're never going to find out what happened between the conversation between Mr. Marinakis, Edu, and Nuno, are we? So it is
and
one of those.
Had you heard there was a completely unconfirmed source, but one of those in the know journalists, I think, on Twitter saying, "Oh, Forest are looking at sacking Edu because they blame him for everything that's gone wrong." And do you have anything to offer on that?
Not really. He has made mistakes, but again, you don't know what's happened behind closed doors. I mean, he's getting a lot of the blame, but you don't know if he's been told to do certain things by.
And Stephen, as somebody who, you've got journalistic chops. Okay, you haven't worked in journalism for a while, but it's one of those things, isn't it, whereby rumours on Twitter are not stories, are they? And ultimately, the only people who know the conversations have gone on at the club are the people who were involved in those conversations.
We've made our choice as a club to bring Edu in as our overseer of football, not only at Forest, but at Evangelos Marinakis' other clubs. Ross Wilson has left Forest and gone to Newcastle. So whether we blame Edu or not for the situation we're in, we've got to stick with him and back him to do his job.
Yeah, and it's not something like with the Postecoglou situation where, it's actually fundamental to the fabric of the club if Postecoglou stayed in the job, because things were going south pretty quickly. Just on the topic of our errant Australian friend there, Tom, if the news broke on Monday night of Brendan Rodgers' rather testy departure from Celtic, if they sign Postecoglou, then that could be one of the greatest transfers Forest have made all season, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Save us from some of that burden of paying him off.
Good riddance, and he's better suited up there. But Martin O'Neill's warming the seat, and Monday mornings on TalkSport will be a better place, because all he harps on about is these 19 games under Mr. Marinakis, which is he needs to give it a rest now.
I'm just going to point out that, bearing in mind that, and we don't want to rake over too much old ground, but I'm going to leave you with this: is that Martin has gone on the record as saying he was quite shocked that he was sacked and was still in the building when it was announced that Sabri Lamouchi was taking over. I'm just going to point out that Brendan Rodgers must still have been technically in the job when Martin was announced as the new manager of Celtic. So I think that's probably a good point at which to leave it. They're putting the shutters down at YATESY'S Espresso Bar because that's the sound of a bunch of angry Glaswegians coming along threatening to bottle the place. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much to Tom Newton and Stephen Topless. We'll be back after the Man United match at the weekend. And in the meantime, as always, come on you Reds.
You've been listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. Follow us on X, Insta, TikTok, Threads and Blue Sky, and listen via Apple, Spotify and YouTube. All the links are available at 1865.football.
podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Doug.
Here we have the Lemur Emu in its natural habitat, helping people customize their car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. Fascinating. It's accompanied by his natural ally, Doug.
Limu, is that guy with the binoculars watching us?
Cut the camera. They see us.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.